Bintina mama yeshire. Bintina mama yeshire. Senyera dinaya. My Israel came. Tie pempe suame bi meja ni minenia dance se. We die free ni po. Na we die urade sano. Waye wo femu die. Obo mo di dia. Eyampa. Wato enuma nenso wanto nyanso tie wato enuro nenso wanto yare sawai wamma mafutu odie nenso wamma minkunimdie ensi ni amu yinyina amba mekanu befese we die free po na we die urade sanu urade na waye mesa adumti na maye shire ti se ni maye ya oh seni ya miti enia oh seni ya mumine adumbinti na mama yeshire seni ya maya seni ya miti enia oh seni ya mumine adumbinti na mama yeshire enie adumbinti ye na yadumo adumbinti na mama ai na dumma dumyania oh eye Yesu Kristo na dumno adumbinti na mama yeshire so bi baby bi ehuna anaso bi pa sembiate ansana wajunya media oh ni serenwa se Manu kwachi pia ombra mi shey na minima bra buma dance ya chereno na obe unu se ni e kanu wa tresem nu binti anya na sishim abra boni dia dance se eye uradina ye adumbinti na mama yeshire senye ye o anawaya my Israel came Amisha sin free baby I'm free so be kind share baby baby but you me free Nazareth tapa nanko bi anyini na sumura ni my afra bone dia dance yes e wura di to me ade nyina yo adumti na ma yeshire adumbinti na mama yeshire ewo mi yare pensuno ye kai me ke wo Wana biribi won sempuru Wakwa sama Yena mi eniwa Nami wera Bia mi tumi adie nina yono Ena sumiti ya siya ya dansi die Mabura bone bia dansi ese Ewura di tumi adie nina yo Ye eya na dumbo Na mama ishire Tisani ya maya Oh sani ya miti enea oh seni ya mumini adumbinti na mama yeshire seni ya maya seni ya miti enea oh seni ya mumini adumbinti na mama yeshire enia adumbinti Yena ya dummo Adumbinti na mama Yena dumma yenya oh eye Yesu Kristo na dumno Adumbinti na mama yeshire Nana ya wasi edusi Adumbinti Mami ohine wasosi Adumbinti na mama yeshire Nani asinya mi adumna ya nesa Adumbinti Eye Yesu Kristo na domno adumbinti na mama yeshire mi mami Mary nti amuasi oh adumbinti adumbinti na mama yeshire munsuro ya mi mama mumuwate munsuro tamfono dudu ya mi mama mumuwate munsuro kwa yedie yo ya mi mama mumuwate okuno ye uradeko eye uradeko ye wo wa kunewi wai yenyame ne bo wenyame munsuro nyame mama mumu wati munsuro tamfo no dodo no nyame mama mumu muma yensuro ku ayedie yo nyame mama mumu wati okuno ye urade ku eye urade ku ye o wa ku kunewi wai yenyame ne bo wenyame enti minu yanum mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie na Yesu Kristo kayemui onyauye mumayenwe benkum maneni fai mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim ti yakofie chidifo mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie na Yesu Kristo kayemui onyauye akwansrofo no akwabo obi ade na maneriba do wonu say wo man no soso waya brani akase edi ya wotutu ahumpa enti semme benkinkiti itumi wona mama yensa ye Joshua Caleb wonso abade wa maneriba wasiye wo mama no soso so mama yenkai Jordan ewurade ande dine matwayo mumienkai pukoko na chiso ewurade ande de kwaitu mu mumienkai Jericho afaso we ewurade ande di na kwate okuno ye ewurade ku eye ewurade ku ye o wa ku kunewi wai yenyame ne bo nyame Misia kwansrofo no akwaba bi ade na maneriba do wonu say wo man no soso waya brani akase na yedi ya hututu ahumpa yeti semme benkinkiti itumi wona mama yensa ye Joshua Caleb wonso abade wa maneriba wasiye wo mama no soso so mama yenkai Jordan ewurade na dini metwayo mumienkai pukoko na chiso ewurade na di kwaitu mu mumienkai Jericho afaso we ewurade na di na kwate okuno ye ewurade ku eye ewurade ku ye o wa ku kunewi wai korofo no yenyame ne bo nyame enti minu yanum mumienfa kukuduron yankoyenim wajidiemu mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie na Yesu Kristo kayemui onyauye Nasuti asasi ya dumisuwe amani rempa yintiri suda yewunu kasaini nenchensi echere ya dumi asasi ya hanye fio finish hard kwa fini yedi osuru mbarari ejume yebekusuwa ya wawoni ya manfrafo hanye fio yedi ya manye bu osuru oman krunkura trinity mu ewurade asiyesi yedi ya manemman okuno ye ewurade ko ye o wa ko kunewi wai nkorofo no yenyame ne bo nyame enti minu yanum mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim chitie na Yesu Kristo kayemui onyauye wana opese wadinya misumpa betena sino mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim befa watai wo hawuni amani hunu mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim nansu wakandi wa shane mapa Yesu Kristo shayo kayemui onyauye Asi mikamu diko si asi ewie mumienfa kukuduron konkoyenim Anukofuona washani mapo Anukofuona washani mapo na waka no beo na Yesu na waka kayemui onyauye Obim Pusumi, Nami free me name. Obim Pusumi, Namika me die in children, not die soon for children, Nasia. Yamba, I am Mr. Dasu, dear me, making the woman to see you. I am Mr. Dasu, dear me, making the woman to see you. Oh, anyway, what's my hincho? Oh, anyway, what's my gongo? Oh, anyway, but for my goodness, so, na dear me, we dear Vidiana, Yamini Passy, Debbie, na dear Wuno no sanity, dream big, catch your dreams, make them real, century in Yamita sea. Century in Passasi, so century in one in Passasi, so Freddy de Bemucase, Freddy de Bemucane, Yambe Yamau, Mia, Yam Freddy de Crana, Samusa, no, didn't to me, Bayam, century.
Yo, abusia for enyumre so ye beda nyame ase. Am say ye brena so a ye be hye dwumadi na se. Ansa na ye be hye dwumadi na se na ye jama education na yinua Kevin LED no. Ye wompaye ba ko na mienu bi a ye bedi kan abo. Me ye sure say munyina munya announcement a enyumre mpenufo de to line so. Efa yinua ba Elizabeth Entry ho eti said ye de ato manim nti ye besre asopani a odikan asopani oben na wabompaye mu odin aman se nyame emma ne nsa so ewo yinuaba Elizabeth Entry ho said ye nyina yenim no trosem na mene hu se mienu ana basa kabuma bompaye nyame ti obeye nso aman we ye emergency nti ye pese nyame emma ne nsa so eman na ta de babia no onyimfiri oman ti mesre mo obia yensi tirase na asopani James Oben ene ye emmo empire asopani bacha wo so a bompaye man
Yo nyame ma momye mompaye yendima fo ne ya bankese onyame tumfo onyame nwanwani anwumre aseda emfa Kristo Yesu so enka wudin yeda wasia na efata firi so ne yedi ne yie anwumre yede yamuye ene yemra to nyina aba wanim se onyame yeso se emfumso bi a ye tiawo ebia na yedwato amugya hye ne se fa kyeye sabre ne yedi yenua ba Sister Elizabeth eba wanim onyame unkuto na sabre unim ohaw amanihunu dadwene ye abusuan enamu obonsam de nkase yi an openo se da biara dano no odi amanihunu ne ohaw abegu yenso nesu wo Kristo Yesu nkuto na ye pegi ye ni hwewo a edidaso eba enti anwumre yama ye ni so akyerɛw ese onyame sane ebra ye mfimfin na empaebo a ye bo ne anwumre se amumuye binti enru wani a yeso se fa kyeye na ma won saso ewo ye nua baayi so baabia wodabia onyame yeso se fa won saka no unkuto ani oduafo a wo sayare sɛde ɔha no asitie bia unkuto na obetumi aye ano aduru na yenimisa wo Kristo Yesu de ye ma wanim enko ne nsapan da etini ye kan yenimisa ubebie waso atie ye enti onyame baabi ɔda biara no fa ne onsaka no mano ente wonka ye gyina gyigyem na ye bo sampa yi esa gye nua ba efiri na yaresem ye ni bibia eka se ye hwese empo lasos wu ye na wodon saka no na otimi sɔre ye yɛhwɛ sɛ empo ɛbra na ne da so asa na wosane asɛnnua no so na nansa wotumi sɔre yɛ a ne yɛnim sɛ wei deɛ ketewa bi ma nti onyame yɛnni ɔkamafo biara yɛnni ɔgyefoɔ biara ɛka wo kristo yesu ho nti anwummerɛ yɛ saa de yɛnnua bai ɛnnu wo mogyam sɛ onyame yɛsɔ sɛ sa ne yareɛ yɛsɔ sɛ fa wo nsa ɛka no
Amen.
yɛsɔ sɛ hu no mmɔbɔ
Amen.
na ma abusua yi ɛmfa anigyeɛ ɛnka sɛ onyame wo ne wɔn adi ne yie bɛs no vasafo yɛnnua bai wɔyɛ asomfo onyame wɔsom wo da biara da sɛdeɛ ɛtie biara no wɔyɛ w'adwuma sɛneɛ ɛfata enti nea yɛsɔ ne sɛ wokyinkyini bi no so yi anwummerɛ yɛsɔ sɛ ɛntwa ne ho nkɔ
Amen.
ɛfa wo nsa ɛka no na wonya ayaresa na ɛnhyɛ wo kristo yesu din animuonyam yɛnum sɛ wobɛyɛ na neɛ ɛka ho biara wode bɛka ho sɛ woatie yɛn mpaebɔ anwummerɛ ɛwɔ agya ɔba ne wɔn kronkron din mu nti amen.
Amen. So beni edasi pa nyame hyira wo. Gyidifo sɛdeɛ waka no yɛn nyinaa ɛwɔ hɔ a yɛmmɔ mpaeɛ mmoa nyɛ ɔno nko a nyame mmoa na saa nneɛma wei deɛ ɔnyi mfiri hɔ ama yɛn. Yo, ɛbɛda mo ase. Me nua Kevin wɔyɛ ready am sɛ yɛafa mmerɛ no ketewa bi take over ne lead mine meda ase.
Yo, paying me that say, and that'll be answer say, happy Sabbath. Before I be shot here, I'm stress and go be our line if it should be a person bumpire my before I be shot here.
nyame ma mo mmea mpaeɛ yɛdi mafo ne aban kɛseɛ yɛsa akɔ so ɛda wase sɛ ɛnnɛ waka wo ma ho ne yɛbɛhyiam na yɛbɛsua adesua yɛsɛ wo sɛ yɛde dwumadie yi ɛhyɛ wo nsa yɛnnu a ɔbɛdi animu yi yɛsɛ sɛ onyame yɛne si nkyɛn sonko kwan so apɔmuden adesua ɛyɛ adeɛ a ɛho ehia ɛma yɛn sɛ ɔbɔnsam no anim sɛ yareɛ ne adeɛ a wobɛtumi ɛde asɛ yɛn abrɛ yɛ gyidi asɛnti no da biara da no na ɔpɛ kwan bi so ɛde yɛafa so ɛti ɛnɛ yɛsɛ sɛ ma yɛmmie yɛ adwene mu ɛma adesua yi na yɛnya mu nteaseɛ ne nhunumu wɔn a ɛmmɛduru so biafo wɔn bɛduru so asomdwiem na yɛwie a yɛde ayɛyie ne aseda ama yɛsɛ sɛ ka yɛn ho ɛnnɛ da yi na hyɛ wo ho animuonyam na ɛnnɛ yɛde sua yi ɛnwie ɛpɛyɛ ɛwɔ w'adom mu ɛwɔ kristo yesu din mu nti amen.
Amen. Yo, and the young fabric bebre no.
The ability Amaya she is having some technical issues in the just bear with us a few minutes. She's trying to get back on. Uncle Mike, we've got to for a few minutes, Amaya.
I would dear Nija Trinity, then Sunerias Muyampa de Pa. Oh, be a man near the Trinity. Oh, be a one near the Trinity. It's a deep body come so. I mean, any that's so dear. Eh, would I am in 1 century? Mark Kardashian picture. Annie Miriam. I am said that so dear me. You know what I mean, I see you. I am said that so dear me. You know what I mean, I see you. Now, dear me, we dear Bidiana. Yamini Passy, Debbie. Aquada was share what you know where your poverty dream be. touch your dreams, make them real. Sanctuary, sanctuary, one oh you passa sisu sanctuary, sanctuary, one oh you feji di pemu kase kase, feji di pemu kane yami me yamau, mi yami ye, beyo 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 beye, oye kesio, sanctuary yami tasi. Sanctuary passa sisu sanctuary sanctuary wano ye passa sisu megidi pe mukase miya
Dr. Vera Kuffour Manu. I believe that we've gone over a lot of things this week. Yes, you have a meaning no be our question the past days here, you know, in regards to the recruiting things that I wish I knew and all those things. It can be a question, a bit means a comment. Yeah, a brand here in when you're Musa. Young fast a British away, a bright trained doctor no. Na young for in this uncommon until Bibisa with me Eddie Abba.
Ebusuafo mpacho mabaso.
Okay, and then Kevin.
I was having technical difficulties.
Okay, mommy hand over my Kevin and Toss.
Okay. All right. And yeah, before I twice and I may introduce you your guest speaker for an Dr. Vera Kuffour Manu. To take it over from here.
Yo, okay. Medasi Bebre Kelvin. Good evening. Happy Sabbath to Munyana. We did Nyamisha Mosemunyana to me abaso. Naminya technical challenges kakra. Inti enumero program ye ba be no. Ya two din said different paths to success. Different paths to success. Inti enumero no me wo panel. Me wa akosia safo, akosia ye me niece or Vegas, well, say or California. Me wo Kwabena Safo or non so ye me nephew or non so or Vegas. And I me one Nana Bema Safo or non so ewo Vegas or non so ye me niece. And me bananeje wa menu so eka panel no ho. Inti sabre no mema naneje we di kaya introduce no ho nanabo ubemi ehu din any baby a wotia. And ne ya kwa akusua ho ye free one ye kokobi ne ya kwa Nana Bema.
Good evening. You're from Nanejiwa Manu, White Plains, Maryland.
Akusua.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Mintimikatri Papa, so I'm gonna speak English, but
okay.
My name is Akusia Sarfo. I'm in California right now, and I'm about to start med school in at the end of July.
Kobe.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I also don't speak Tree very well either, so I'll introduce myself in English. My name is Kobe Sarfo. I just recently graduated from George Washington University. I'm currently getting ready for law school and I'm studying my LSAT. I'm in Las Vegas too, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks, Kobe. Nana Bema.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in Las Vegas as well. My name is Nana Sarfo. I go to USC. I'm currently studying business and also real estate at the same time. And I'm excited to be here for the panel.
Okay. All right. Kobe and Akosia, could you please come on camera because I'm going to be asking you questions. And Nana, can you stay on camera, please? All right. So this evening, we're just going to go through your journey, where you started from, where you are, and, what you're looking forward to do in the future. So Nana, we'll start with you. If you could just give us a brief overview as to your journey from when you finished high school, went to college, how you decided on your major, and in terms of future, what you were looking to do.
Yeah, so you want me to just start in high school or
start high school and then go to, and then your accomplishments from there up until college, Nana.
Yeah, so I decided that I wanted to go to USC probably in my junior year. I knew that I wanted to always do business. And I picked USC as that school because of the programs that it had. And I also knew that I wanted to be in California as well, just because it's always been sort of my calling. I found it very early. So that's why I settled on going to USC. And so that is why I picked business, evidently. And then once I got into USC, I figured that real estate was also the path that I wanted to go into as well. So that's when I found out that I wanted to also major in real estate, which is why I picked both of those majors. And then in the beginning of high school, I knew that business was also my calling as well, because I had started a business when I was 13. It was a toy company called LPS Con, where I would have conventions annually and I would organize them for people all over the world. So that was sort of my calling at a young age. That I knew I wanted to go into business. And then real estate, I found I always had a bit of a knack for selling things because I got into the horse world quite early as well, and that helped me kind of figure out my calling and figure out that I was actually really good at marketing and whatnot. So that's currently what I'm doing. I'm also doing social media as well. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've been working on for myself. So branding myself and staying on my social platform has been something I've been working on this summer.
Okay, and I will come back to you into more detail about your business, but now we'll go to Nanejewa. Nanejewa, could you tell us about, after you graduate from high school, going to college, how you chose your major, and in terms of even selecting a college, how did that whole process go?
Sure. So I knew that going into college that I wanted to do something to change the laws in this country, specifically as they relate to Black people and other communities of color that are negatively affected by what's happening in society. So I initially actually started out wanting to be an immigration lawyer, and I was interested in being a government major, so something like political science. But I quickly realized that although I loved the subject matter, I didn't write in the way that they wanted me to write in the government program. They wanted me to write like a journalist, and that just was not the writing style that I had. So I pivoted a little bit and I ended up in sociology, which allowed me to systematically study how societies function and how people work. And I also majored in African American studies, which allowed me to get to learn about different Black communities within the United States. I also minored in Spanish, which also helped me to continue connecting with different immigrant communities. So I chose my major mostly through talking to upper class students, to professors, learning about their interests and figuring out where I fit in. After that, I ended up working at a think tank where we did work on closing the racial wealth gap. And my boss had a PhD, and I was really taken with the idea that you could use research to connect with lawmakers and make changes. And so I said I wanted to be like her. And that's what actually inspired me to pursue a PhD that would allow me to learn the research skills, learn the analysis skills that would allow me to be at the tables where they were making decisions. So I didn't end up being a lawyer, but I am still in the government space. And I do hope that as I continue my career there, that I'll be able to play a role in changing policies that affect Black people and other marginalized communities.
Thank you, Nanejewa. Okay, Akosia, now could you take us from your journey as well from high school to college, and in terms of what you decided, how you decided on your major and what you're currently doing? Akosia, can you hear me?
Oh,
Okay.
hi. Okay. So I guess I would say my journey first started back it started when I was very young. My dad's a doctor. My father's Dr. Sarko. So I got to see his profession a lot in my youth. And I got to see how I just got to see how he went about his daily business and how much he loved his work. And through that, I ended up sort of following a pre-med route throughout my life. In high school, I was preparing for it. And even in college, I was preparing for it. So I went to college at WashU in St. Louis. So I went out to Missouri all the way from Las Vegas. And after that, I went and got a master's in medical physiology at Case Western in Ohio. So that took about 2 years. And so now currently, after having done that, I'm heading to get my MD in 4 years at Loma Linda in California. So it's very much mainly been planned out for me from the start, but it's all been, very rewarding.
Thank you. Now, Cubby, could you take us through your journey as well from high school to college? Any changes that you made while you were in college, and also the path that you took to get there and where you're going now?
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yes, yes, we can
Mhm.
hear you. Mhm.
So my story, in terms of my calling, my purpose, figuring that out, sort of started a little bit before high school began. In the sense that I was kind of similar to my sister. I wanted to go the pre-med route. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I thought that uh, I was used to it because my dad was a doctor. I had doctors around me in my family, and I always used to play with things like Transformers and Legos. So I just thought, why not do something where I'm very good with my hands? That changed around 2015, the first year of my freshman year of high school, where I took a mission trip to Puerto Rico, and we serviced people who were homeless and addicted to drugs. And I met one man's story who particularly stuck with me. He was living in the kindergarten he used to go to with his mother, and he had an ulcer. And it struck me how unfair his situation was. He got into a fight with his mother, and he started crying, and that's when it hit me that I want to be able to do something substantive about this. Much in the way that Nana Jewa wanted to figure out and learn about how the legal system, how America's laws impact people of color, impact Black people specifically. I really got interested and passionate about advocating for uh, Black liberation and uh, advocating for the rights of people who are downtrodden. And that took me into debate in my high school year. And I got really good at debate. I found my passion for it. I was good at public speaking. I became one of the top 100 debaters in the nation. Um, and around that time, that's when I started to have doubts about the medical path, because I knew that it wasn't helping me to accomplish my purpose in the way that I had really wanted to. Um, and it didn't really hit me until freshman year when I took a chemistry class and like despised it, that I really understood that no, I'm meant to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer, and that advocacy took me throughout my college years. I spent a lot of time doing debates with other colleges on a national level, for a group called Braver Angels, which led me to advocacy work with the NAACP and helped me to write legislation for them, that's currently being reviewed by the Maryland government as we speak. Um, and my passion for helping those who are in need and downtrodden led me to volunteer with groups like PD Green, where I would educate and tutor students at the Youth Services Center uh, were who were incarcerated. So at the juvenile detention center. Um, that was really the shape and arc of how I came to find my purpose and understand it. And that especially got exacerbated during the 2020 pandemic and the murder of George Floyd, where we saw tons of Black people being taken advantage of by the police, by the law, by those in power, very out in the open. And so my resolve has never been firmer on that.
Okay, thank you, Kobe. Okay, so Nana Jewa, I know your path, you kind of knew what you wanted to do. I think all of you knew what you wanted to do growing up. And so, you are really the exception instead of the norm. However, Nana, after you finished your bachelor's degree, you did some work, you did work in the real world before going to get your PhD. Tell us a little bit about that experience, that work experience before going to get your PhD.
Yeah, so I will say working actually helped me to figure out what I wanted to do. When I left undergrad, I had been in a program called the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program, which helps students who are minorities to gain a path to PhD programs. So they help support your research in undergrad. They support you with your graduate school applications. They help pay for your GRE scores, etc. But I left that actually thinking that I didn't really want to go to get a PhD. I didn't think being a professor was for me. But after I finished my thesis, I remember thinking I really want to study how Black communities heal from trauma. So that was what started turning the wheels in my head of, hey, maybe I should do a PhD program. But it really didn't get solidified for me until I started to work. So when I first started to work, I was actually in the fundraising development world, and I worked for two consultants, and I was essentially their assistant. And I quickly realized that admin work was not for me. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was I went to visit a graduate school program, and they told me that I had to cut my trip short and come right back to work. And that just didn't work for me. I didn't like the idea that they weren't very supportive of me advancing in my education. So that was the first and only job that I quit. And after bumbling around a little bit for a couple of months, I finally landed that job at the think tank. And so, just for context, a think tank essentially develops research, and they often share it with people who make policies, Capitol Hill, state government, local government. And so, as I mentioned before, being able to be in that space and learn from people who looked like me and were making an impact really told me, okay, a PhD is what I want to do. So I'm going to stay here, learn what I need to from the people around me, and then continue applying to graduate school programs. So I think the working world taught me a lot. It taught me how to be humble. It taught me that everybody has to start somewhere. And it taught me to pay attention to what spaces make me feel like I belong and what spaces make me feel like I don't belong. And it also taught me to know when to quit and remove myself from situations that weren't serving me. So I do think it's very useful to try to get some work experience whenever possible, because it really does humble you and it teaches you a lot about yourself.
Thank you. So, Nana Bema, you started a business at a very young age. Tell us what actually, propelled you or motivated you to start the business. And I know even when you were 9 years old, you were actually doing business, right? You did some painting that you were selling. So just give us a general idea, because you are the youngest in terms of our entire family, right? You are the youngest entrepreneur in that family. So just give us an overview as to what motivated you and how that current business that you have is doing. Because I know you have these huge conventions. I have been to one before and I was really impressed. So tell us about that whole business and how it's going and what really motivated you to do it and how you were able to actually be able to have these huge conventions over time. Where did you start from? What was the first convention that you had, and where is the convention now?
Yeah, so basically I knew that I always wanted to start a business. By the age of 3, I'd gotten like my first littlest pet shop. These cute little bobblehead, yeah, they're right here. I can just show you these cute little bobblehead toys like these. So I was collecting them and I loved them. And about 9, I created like my first littlest pet shop YouTube account, which my parents did not know of at the time. But I would just post, very funny videos, poorly edited. But it was me expressing it was my creative outlet. I thought I was a whole movie producer at that age, but no, they were just like really poorly made videos, but they helped inspired me to start a business, because I grew a community and I met a lot of people through that. So social media allowed me to meet a lot of different littlest pet shop creators, photographers, and we started to connect. And eventually I got on Instagram and found that there was a whole community. And by 12, I saw there was different conventions going on, like VidCon and BeautyCon. And I decided that I wanted to have my own form of those conventions, because I thought it was cool that they had, meetups, but there wasn't really anything made for littlest pet shops and made specifically for kids. The audience was kind of at the time, like older young adults. So I wanted something more catered towards kids and myself. So the first meetup I had was just in a little park. Um, when I was 13, in the summer. My parents had no idea what was going on again. Just went to their room, said, "Hey, meet me in the park. There's a whole thing going on." And they did. And Eventually, after that, we found that, it was only 16 people, but they had come from all over the world. We have people driving in from California. We had somebody flying from Wisconsin. And after that, I decided that this could actually be a thing. So around 2000, was it 2018, when I was 15, that's when it started to become a real business. At 14, I was able to pitch to investors, and that helped me, get the mentorship that I needed to solidify it and actually get it as a business. So I was able to get it registered as an LLC. Sort of, they walked me through everything of the ins and outs of running a business, especially at that age, which is definitely something that I needed. And then by then, the event had already grown to 362 attendees. The tickets sold out very quickly. And, that was probably the biggest that I thought the event was going to be. I held it in a convention center that first year. And then the next year, all to my surprise, that was the biggest year. Got really good at social media, did all of my marketing myself, and eventually, I was able to get over 900 attendees to that event, which was held in the summer of Las Vegas, 2-day event, which was pretty big. Um, and that was probably, I'd say, like one of the, the highest years LPSCon have had. The pandemic came, so we did, online events. 2021, we bounced back pretty good, and the business has been still keeping its base pretty consistently, which is great. This year, things have changed. I was hired by the company that actually produces Littlest Pet Shops. They reached out to me and wanted me to work for them as a consultant. So currently, I'm doing consulting for the company that produces the toys that I grew up in and loved, which is really cool. And then this year, we're projected to have it on July 29th. Same going. This will be the company Basic Fun. This will be their sort of soft launch event, which will be really nice for that company as well, because they have just taken on Littlest Pet Shop, and they need to win back the audience a little bit. So that's what I've been helping them doing, win back the community one by one slowly. And then next year, I'm planning a big thing for the company. For the next event, we're planning some big things for them so that they're able to really showcase all the, their products and whatnot that they want to market to the Littlest Pet Shop world. That'll all be next year. But this year, they will be there, sort of like an introduction to the community. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, Kobe, I'm coming to you. You were talking about you had written some legislator for the NAACP. So tell me a little bit about that. What motivated you to write that? To write that legislator that the state of Maryland is looking at right now. What kind of really pushed you to do that, and what is in that document?
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the particulars of the legislation relate to 3 sectors: jobs, housing, and education. We sort of, it was me and 2 others. We sort of isolated these 3 variables due to the particular situation that DC is going through at the moment. At the time, I was in DC, but the details of legislation are rather general and can be applied to most cities. What we were targeting in terms of jobs, housing, and education was sort of a novel approach. Typical legislation tends to, in terms of jobs, tends to target STEM-related jobs. So there was Obama's bill about a decade back that helped young Black kids get into STEM-related jobs, got them into camps and education centers and training programs to get them ready. So we wanted to target trade jobs and give people a pathway to that. I wrote legislation, a particular policy that offered companies tax breaks for creating and setting up programs to partner with trade colleges to establish programs that targeted people from lower socioeconomic statuses And we found a census from Maryland and DC, and we isolated which particular populations would be most affected and most properly benefited by the policies we were aiming for. In terms of education, my friend Sam, who was also working on it, he aimed to address the racial divide that sort of exists in education and the gap that exists in that. So he wrote policy that targeted kids within that demographic and allowed them pass to be able to reach higher education. For I said jobs, education, and then housing. Housing was a particular red spot because there's a lot of gentrification going on in DC at the moment. Tons of Black people are getting priced out of their houses. If you ever go by the area near the YSC, you'll see it. It's like night and day. You'll see one area where it looks very low income, and then you'll see the other area which looks like very, very, very gentrified and white. Very gentrified and white. And you'll know what I mean. Because there will be like white people running down the street, and that's like a pretty good sign that a place is getting very gentrified. So he targeted areas that had been designated with the D rating in terms of housing, and wanted to apply forms of community programs and funding to be able to get them on par with neighborhoods rated A. That was the specifics and the particulars. Did you ask me a second question about the legislation?
I think that's it. Like what motivated and what is in it, and that's what you told us. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you. So Akosia, I know you wrote a book at a very young age. Could you tell us a little bit about the book and what motivated you to write that book? Akosia.
Hi, yeah, okay. So that book was born of I so ever since I was very little, I used to write short stories on the computer all the time. I would open up Word document and just type away, and I would often write short stories and share them for people to see. So one day I wrote a story and people were engaging with it a lot. I was getting a lot of hits and reviews and such. And so I showed my parents, and my mom in particular got very excited about it and encouraged me to write an actual book. Um, so that was at age, I think 13, 14, but it really wouldn't have been without my mother's push that I ended up actually writing and finishing a story, because I was good at starting stories, but I wasn't good at finishing them. So wrote and finished that book. To this day, I was 14 when I wrote it. So I look back on it and I cringe a little bit, but I am still proud of the accomplishment because it represented something that I wouldn't have done if it weren't for my parents pushing me forward.
What's the title of the book, Akosia?
The title is A Wrath of a Mediocre Hero.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very long-winded title, but if you want to read it, you can. But yeah, I can do better now, is all I will say.
But that's a great accomplishment. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Nana Jewa, I'm just going to go back to you again. I know you did an internship on the Hill. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What you were involved with, if you actually contributed to any documents that they produced there. Tell us a little bit about your work on the Hill, Capitol Hill.
Yeah, so I did 2 internships. The first was working in the personal office of the late Congressman Elijah Cummings, and I came there at an interesting time. It was summer 2013, so Trayvon Martin had been shot the year prior, and George Zimmerman was going to trial. So it was a very difficult time to be an intern and answering phones, I will say. But nonetheless, I learned a great deal. I helped to contribute to some briefings affecting military officers and related to immigration as well. Additionally, I also did an internship at the House Homeland Security Committee, and that was run by Ranking Member Benny G. Thompson, who's from Mississippi. that was also a really excellent experience, and I got to contribute to some legislation around aviation security. I did some work on counterterrorism as well, and I think it was a great experience to be able to build relationships with people within the office, to learn about what a career as a Hill staffer could look like, and it quickly showed me that I did not want to be on the Hill. Nonetheless, I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I had because, again, this is why I think work experience is important in college and beyond, because it helps you to learn what you like about jobs and what you don't like. So the piece that I did like was crafting policy, but I realized I didn't have the personality to really thrive on the Hill. It's a pretty cutthroat place, and it's definitely for a specific kind of person, which is not me. I'm soft. So that was a useful lesson for me, and I really very much appreciate the relationships that I built from that. And it was through my cousin who actually helped me to get those internships, so I'm very much grateful to him for that.
Okay. Now, Kobe, I'm going to come to you because you also had the opportunity to work with, I'm not sure, Congress representative as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I worked for Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Um, mine was during COVID, so it was a virtual. I didn't really have the in-person experience, but it was still a very insightful experience nonetheless. Got to learn about the particulars of what goes on in the Hill. I got to record meetings. I wrote the particulars of during the time there was a huge controversy with Dianne Feinstein because she had okayed Amy Coney Barrett without explicitly sort of going back to the Democrats, the Democratic Senate Judiciary for like approval on that one. She like gave Amy Coney Barrett a hug, which was like very controversial. I wrote some of the lines that Debbie Wasserman Schultz said when she was censoring her and reprimanding her and rebuking her for her actions. So while it was a brief time, it was still a very insightful look into the particulars of the house, and I'd really like to be able to do it again.
Okay, thank you. So Nanabima, I'm going to come to you. We're going to end the question soon so that people can ask you questions. But one of the questions I want to ask is, I know you spent some time in Italy, right? Tell us a little bit about that and why you went there first before coming to USC.
Yeah, so I went to Italy first because I was giving a program with my university. And at the time, it was like really ideal. Helped me complete all my GEs at that time. I got to finish everything before I came to USC and complete my business courses. So it was really awesome. I was able to spend a year abroad. And for me, I definitely needed that. It was nice to go to a place where nobody knew who I was and I could sort of like find who I like was as a person, you know, like kind of grow into the person that I am now. And I feel like a lot of the growth that I've had is equated to Italy and living abroad at such a young age. Definitely grounded me and learning about the culture, learning about new experiences. I believe it's so important. And it definitely changed who I was as a person. And I definitely I definitely recommend everybody go abroad once just to you know change and see how the world operates from not so much of an American view. So that was really groundbreaking for me and definitely necessary for me to do.
Okay, thank you. Now, Nana Jewa, you coming back to you again. I know you have a master's in statistics and your PhD in sociology. What motivated you to get a master's and a PhD?
So the program that I was in allowed you to get a master's along the way. And part of the reason I chose a PhD program was I refused to pay for graduate school. So I specifically looked for programs that were fully funded and would allow me to get a master's along the way. And the minute I would see a program where it seemed like you would have to take out loans, it kind of went lower on my list. So that was just a personal thing for me. So in my program, you could opt to get a master's in sociology, you could get a master's in statistics, or you could do a master's in social policy. So I asked around about these different options, and I realized that I wanted to learn how to interpret quantitative data. I wanted to understand how numbers can be used to manipulate people and how numbers can be used for good. I didn't really have that strong of a knowledge when I was coming into graduate school. So really the master's just came from wanting to learn more. I didn't know much, and it was extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. I think the way that I got through it was through having some really great people in my cohort who I did the degree with. We would study together, we would do homework together. And that was really how I got through a lot of these challenging courses, where often me and my cohort mates were the only Black people or people of color in the room. So I'm very grateful for that degree because I think it's set me apart in the job market. In terms of the PhD, I've talked a little bit about wanting to use my work for policy. And I always say that I got a PhD because I wanted to be an advocate, much like Cubby said. I think a PhD opens the door for you to be able to say that you have some expertise in a specific area, and people can actually look to you and say, well, based on your experience, what can we do to solve this problem? And so for me, that was the driving factor for why I pursued that degree. And I'm grateful to be able to start to use that degree in my current work today. So that's a little bit about why I did those degrees.
Thank you. Sakosi, I'm coming back to you. I know that you got a master's in medical, is it medical physiology? If I'm wrong, please correct me. And then took your MCAT. I'm just trying to find out, while you were taking that, that's a very tough program. It's not an easy program at all because it involves a lot of science. But you were able to endure for those, that time, and then at the same time take your MCAT. So how did you plan in terms of dividing up your time between classes and also studying for the MCAT? Because you did extremely well on the MCAT. So I just need to know how you, maneuvered this whole
Thank you for
program.
being so complimentary. In terms of dividing my time, I did not. I did my classes and I focused only on those. There was a lot of emphasis on cutting out any extracurriculars, any type of work, and really focusing on just doing well in those classes. So that's part of why I was able to manage that. And then the summer after my first year, I took the MCAT, even though it was honestly kind of discouraged by my advisor. At first the program had been advertised as a 1-year program, and then they were like, well, you could do it in 1 year, but actually maybe you should do it in 2 years, might be better. So already I was like, all right, let's speed this up. So I was getting ready to take my MCAT at the end of that first year and then apply after the first year. And I was actually advised by my advisor that I should wait and apply, not even wait to apply after the second year, but take a gap year and then wait to apply again. And by that time I was like, let's really just, no, thank you. So I went ahead and took the MCAT after that first year, applied after that first year, and just threw it to the wind. And then while I was doing my applications, I managed to get a teaching assistant job in that second year. So as I was doing my applications, I was also doing that job and then also finishing up school. So that was an interesting convergence of circumstances, but I'm glad it happened the way it did because I'm right where I need to be.
Okay, thank you. Now, Kobe, I know you're preparing for the LSAT because you're going to be going to law school next year. Now, tell us a little bit about that preparation and what law schools you're looking to go to.
Right. So the LSAT has been it's definitely been a marathon instead of a sprint. It's involved a lot of changing methods, tactics, being flexible, learning to accommodate and understand, because the test isn't so much of a knowledge test as it is a cognition test. It tests how you think, not what you know. So it's a test such that you can't really study for it in a conventional way. You kind of have to keep practicing at it, grinding at it, finding strategies that work for you. And at first, when I was doing it, I let it subsume a lot of my time, left me frazzled in a wreck. The second time, I tried and revise my strategy, it was more like hands off. But it was during school, so it wasn't very realistic for me to try and fit that all together. So my third go at this is really that's happening right now. And in that, I am being flexible, but also making sure to not let the test have that kind of power over me. I'm not letting it subsume my life. It's a part of my life. It's not my entire life, because I know for sure that I'm going to become a lawyer. I'm going to help people in need. And so this is just a tool, a vehicle to get me to wherever I need to get. Ideally, I'd be targeting one of the T14, but I'm flexible to whichever path helps me to get to where I need to be. I chose the T14 particularly because, at least in Harvard and Howard's case, they have a joint collaboration program that focuses on social justice and legal advocacy and aiding Black people in underserved groups. So that's particularly where I'm eyeing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So now the last question is going to be more advice. So Nana Bima, what advice would you give to like a college student, right now in terms of major, in terms of what they want to do, or even a high school student who is thinking about being an entrepreneur, or even a college student who's thinking about, being an entrepreneur? What advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, my advice would be, I have a few. One is definitely put yourself out there and don't be afraid to do it. I think a lot of times people hold themselves back because they're afraid of putting themselves out there. They don't feel comfortable with putting themselves first and foremost. But at the end of the day, you just have to have confidence. And if you don't think you have the confidence, be a little bit delusional. Like, honestly, delusion will carry you a long way. But you have the confidence. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to be the person that you want to be. And eventually you'll start believing it. Even if you don't believe it in the moment, if you keep telling yourself that you're this person, that you're going to be, or let you want this, you're eventually going to start believing it. You're almost going to trick your brain to almost thinking that you're the person that you have to be. And then another advice I would give is always just go for it. Be a go-getter at for everything. Don't hesitate. Get what you want. Be persistent. Persistence is the key, definitely in business as well. Be strong-willed. Don't let other people deter you. Don't let other people tear you down. Don't let other people try to get in your head. Always know what you want and go for it. Work hard if you want to as well. Yeah, I remember at one point in high school, I was balancing, business, school, and horse riding all in one setting. It was very, very hard, but you get through it. So stick with the hard times. Don't be afraid to keep going. And if you're struggling with knowing your calling, just do things that you really enjoy doing. I really enjoyed social media. I really enjoyed photography. That's how I knew I was good at marketing. I really enjoyed horse riding. I knew I could make it into, something on social media. So that's why, I was able to do social media. And you just be persistent even through the tough times. And yeah, that's the advice I would give.
Thank you. All right. Nana Jewa, so let us know in terms of what you're doing currently, what you're doing currently as in terms of a job, what job you have, and any advice that you want to give to, to a high school student or a college student in terms of their path.
Yes, so I currently work as an analyst for the government, and my work is focused on analyzing a lot of my agency's internal processes and programs to be able to help them to run more efficiently. In terms of advice that I would have for high school and college students, I would say definitely get a mentor, find somebody that you admire, that you want to follow in their footsteps, and try to see if you can start connecting with them. I think that was one thing that was really important for me, especially in college and in graduate school. Just being friends with upper class students, connecting with professors. They have a wealth of experience to share and can speak your name in rooms that you are not in and connect you with opportunities that can be very helpful. Secondly, I would say that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do immediately. I know that most of us on this panel seem to have had it all figured out, but it's okay if you don't have it all figured out right at the beginning. Take that first year to explore and figure out what you're good at, what you're not so good at, so that you can start figuring out what your path should be moving forward. And additionally, I would also echo what Nana Bima said. Don't be afraid to work hard. Sometimes that might look like pulling an all-nighter. Sometimes that might look like balancing multiple things, but there is nothing wrong with hard work. And hard work often separates the people who go far from the people who don't go far. Lastly, I would say to the point of mentorship, make sure that you're fully supported in the ways that you need to be. Another thing that I think that distinguishes people who go far versus those who don't go far besides hard work is the right kind of support. That can look like monetary support, that can look like accommodations for your courses, that can look like internship opportunities. But whatever you need to do to thrive, make sure you have those resources at your disposal. And they are available. We're all Black on this call, we're from immigrant families. That's a good identity to have. So look for those resources and make sure that you have them.
And Nana, you said you work for a government agency. What government agency do you work for? Because sometimes people think, well, I got a PhD in this and that's the only way I should go, or that's the only career I can choose, or I only have to find a job in that particular area. So what government agency do you work for?
Yeah, I work for the Food and Drug Administration.
Okay, thank you. All right, Akosia. So what advice would you give to someone in high school, college, in terms of their path or their journey to go to college, and while they're in college, the journey as well? I know you went to do a master's in medical physiology before going to medical school. Someone may maybe go to college, graduate, get their bachelor's degree, and then go right to medical school. So what advice would you give,
The advice that I would give is to, once, like echoing Nana's point, is definitely choose a mentor. It's really all about the people that you surround yourself with, whether it's your support system, somebody you look up to, XYZ. But also I would say is pick your circle wisely. And do not be afraid to prune, because there are people in any avenue that you choose who seek to, who have, who kind of aren't going anywhere, and they sort of know it and want to take you down to that level with them. And it's important to be able to root that out in your friendship groups, even an advisor or something who doesn't seem to be on your side. Try, and if you encounter these people, play nice, but keep your head on a swivel. Know exactly your goals, and do not let anybody deter you from pursuing them. So while you want to pick the right people, you also want to prune the wrong people, because they can get you into a pit of trouble. And then I would also say, in terms of academics, try and get to a place where you have options. That's always the goal. You want to be able to, I call it academic freedom. You want to put in the amount of work that makes you proud of what you've done, and that gives you options for the future. So I definitely learned this in my master's program. That's what really helped me learn how to study and find my groove. It was really all about, once I sort of fine-tuned my studying to where I was getting the grades I wanted, where I was getting the results I wanted, then I had options. Then I could go here, I could do this, I could apply here, I can do that. So it's just try and it's about getting yourself comfortable with where you are and getting yourself comfortable with your future. Even if you don't want to go into a specific thing, having a good GPA doesn't hurt. It never hurts. So yeah, that's all the advice I would give.
Thank you. So some people want to know something about mental health. So I'm just going to ask all of you one question regarding mental health. How were you able to be healthy, mentally while you were in college? Because being in college is a lot. You're taking all these classes at the same time, you have to take care of your mental health. So what all the professors don't care, you may be taking 12 credits. The political science professor doesn't care about you taking English or you taking a math or you taking calculus. They don't care. All they want to know is that you got the work done, right? You show up to class and you get the work done. So tell me a little bit about how you were able to cope in terms of your mental health while you were going through all of these, difficult courses that you took. So Akosia, no, I'm sorry, Kobe, did you give us your advice before, and then when you give us advice, please, any advice you want to give to young people, in terms of whether they're in high school, whether they're in college, advice you want to give to them. And then you can also answer the mental health question as well, Kobe.
Yeah. In terms of advice, a lot like my younger sister, Nanabima, confidence goes a long way. Being able to get your foot in the door, get out there, be confident, and assert yourself. But in a way where you aren't being the one putting yourself in the wrong. So being aggressive and assertive isn't the same thing as like getting angry and losing your temper. You have to be able to assert yourself and state your case in a very neutral and flat affect, especially when you're in a white space around white people who don't understand the energy that we have. Um, any sort of fluctuation in energy can be interpreted as a threat. And sometimes you got to ride that energy. Like you got to let them be intimidated at some points. But other times you got to know when to moderate, when to pull it back. Um, I know that having a strong support network is very, very important. Um, having a group of people that can hold you together, and this sort of ties into the mental health thing. I had Auntie Vera with me constantly as my coach, as my cheerleader, helping me through it. And I'm endlessly grateful to her for it. A strong support network and making sure that you have people who you can trust can go a long way in managing mental health crises that you go through. Like my older sister Kusia said, knowing who are your friends and who are your enemies. Know who's trying to cut you down and know who you should keep around, and making sure to conserve your energy in that way. And also, you don't have to know what you're going to do, but it's always better if you have, I mean, if you know, if you're working towards something you really believe in. If you're constantly working towards something you're not passionate about, that passion can fade, and then you realize that you're in a place that you hate, that you don't want to be in. But working towards something you believe in, you never get tired of it. It never gets tiring, no matter how bad it gets.
Thank you. So Nanabema, how important is mental health in terms of, your overall being? How important is that? Because I know you do yoga, right? And the last time you were here, you were telling me a lot of things about yoga and how it helps you. So could you tell us a little bit about how yoga helps you with your mental health?
Yeah, I do a specific kind of yoga. I do Kundalini yoga, which is basically yoga for your spiritual body. So it's less focused on the physical, more focused on inward and also mentality as well. And I got into the class by, it was totally random. I was picking classes and I was actually trying to take ballet, and then ballet was full. And then I took Pilates. Pilates just didn't work out with my schedule. And then eventually I thought I was signing up for a normal yoga class. And then I picked Kundalini, not really realizing it was Kundalini yoga, went to a first class. I was so dizzy and winded. I almost dropped it. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this. But then I stuck with it, and I saw how good it made me feel and how strong I felt in the mind. And definitely I'm so happy that I decided to go with it. I don't think I I could honestly function without it. Just, the way I've been able to have mental clarity, it's helped with my confidence, my intuitions, especially. Um, but yeah, it's sort of something that has grounded me. It's taught me a lot to, learn how to breathe, but learn how to manage these different situations, and learning how to invest in the future that I want to have, and, learning that I can apply my mind to basically anything that I want in this life is so important. And especially too, also helped a lot with my horse riding as well. I've learned, how to use my breath, to help me through stressful situations when I get nervous, when I'm competing. And riding as well has also been an outlet for me. It's really been important for me to have a hobby and, you know, especially a hobby that kind of puts you outside where you're able to be in nature and calm your mind and have an area where it's just you. That has also helped me mentally. And I would say that most of it, most of what you do in life is honestly, yes, you have to apply hard work, but honestly, it's also, I'd say, about 80% mental as well. You have to be mentally ready. You have to do that work for yourself in your head because honestly, you could be working for something all of your life, but if you're not really believing in what you want, then you're just putting energy into almost nothing. And it's really important that, you're strong mentally. And that way you can navigate, situations that you want to be in through a really strong way, and you're able to get what you want and be confident that that's what you want and that's your path you want to go down. So it's all about, working on your intuition, which is really important, knowing to listen to that voice in your head, but also knowing that that voice in your head is also correct and telling you that this is the right path to go down. It's also really important. And so, doing all these things and being really strong mentally will help you succeed in no matter what you want to do, because if you can believe it, you can get it. So it's really helped me in that aspect. And yeah, I really like where it's brought me so far.
Right, thank you. So Nana, now it's your turn. I know that you are really organized, but when I did ask you the other day, Nana, you're so organized, you said, well, mommy, I have to be organized because if not, I'll be all over the place. So how has your organization helped with your mental health?
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually don't know that it's my organization that helps with my mental health so much as the different outlets that I have. And so I would encourage everybody on the call to seek a personal relationship with God, because that is one of the biggest keys to having strong mental health. Also seek godly community. I think for me, especially in college and graduate school, being able to be connected to a church community that cared about me, that loved me just as much as my family does, was really, really helpful for just feeling human and feeling like I was loved. So that's something that was very important for me. Music is another outlet for me that helps me feel like my best self. So I would just say that thinking of the things that make you feel like you, whatever kind of healthy outlet you have, definitely do that, but definitely make sure that you have a relationship with God. In terms of the organization piece, like I said, it's more out of necessity rather than something that I intentionally do. There just always have been a lot of things going on for me. So, for example, if it's not written down on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So that's just a personal thing that has to happen for me so that I can be less stressed throughout the day. I write everything down in multiple places so I don't forget. Those kinds of things are very helpful just for just reducing stress. I set a lot of alarms. So if you have been around me for any period of time, my alarms go off all of the time because they keep me on track because I tend to run late. So I just developed a lot of little skills to help keep me going. And that definitely, I will say in that regard, that helps reduce anxiety for me. But a lot of it is just creative outlets is what keeps me mentally healthy.
Nana even has an alarm to drink water. So just so so Akosia, you tell us about how you also deal with your mental health, because the path you've chosen is also very tough and it's intensive. So how have you dealt with your mental health throughout your college years up until today?
Through a variety of ways. I lived alone and I am currently living alone for much of my time in grad school. So a lot of times that means making sure I don't go the entire day without saying a single word. So if I can connect with friends and family, that helps a lot. because it can take a toll when you wake up and then go to bed and realize I did not say a single thing at all today. That could be pretty interesting. So I recently got a little yoga mat, and sometimes I'll do stretches on it. It was also especially hard in the winter in Cleveland. That was tough because it would be weeks before you would see the sun sometimes. And coming from Las Vegas, a place with like pretty much 80% of the days sunlight, it was a huge culture shock. So just the city of Cleveland is depressing. I'll try not to get too much on the Cleveland hate train, but needless to say, it could be sometimes a little depressing sometimes. So one of the easiest things I could do was just turn on the light. I could just turn on a lamp, or try and turn on the overhead lights, or even get like a seasonal depression lamp. And just those photons, just that light can help increase your mood. It's just little things like that. So it depends on where I am, but there are different things I can do to improve my mood. Also, spending time outside, leaving the house is very important. So even now, sometimes, like even if it's just to take out the trash, or even just taking a walk around the block, all these things are super important for mental health.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Kobe, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. Nana Bema, thank you so much for taking the time. Nanejewa, thank you so much for taking the time. Akosia, thank you so much for taking the time. You cannot leave yet because people have questions for you. So, DJ, I'm gonna leave this to you, and if anyone has questions, please bring them up. Bring up your questions. Whoever is moderating. If it's Kelvin, go ahead, and if there are any questions in the chat, or if anyone has any questions, you can let us know.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Vera. Thank you so much to all the panelists. And now we will start by asking the audience if anyone has any specific questions dedicated to any specific panelist. You can go ahead and ask.
Afei, so mo sɛ mobɛtumi abusa mo questions no so wɔ twi mu mɛka akyerɛ mo ɔborɔfo mu. So wopɛ sɛ obusa wo question wɔ twi mu nso a ɛyɛ okay. Why? Mepatwɔ yɛtwɛn mo. DJ, mepatwɔ all questions were chat no mu anaasɛ all questions. Okay. Mepatwɔ efie chan patwɔ betumi abusa wo question.
Oh, me that's it. Me kind of treats Miss Vera now I translate it about me. Okay.
No problem.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. To see young people like you, or where you are, what you've done with your life, and sharing that with us. It's awesome. So thank you all for setting that example for our younger kids. My question to you all, and any of you can help me figure out. Coming from the background that more Ghanaian children and having Ghanaian parents or like African parents, what are some of the challenges you face? Say we're moving into this direction in your life where Nanajewa chose. I know most of our parents here, Bahasia, we all want to go into either nursing or healthcare, but we choose to a different path. What are some of the challenges you faced? And saying I'm with me about younger people coming up, say it's not all about healthcare, but other ways. So you most competing with other white kids and all that, and also make a mark within the Ghanaian society. Then I'm a bit to help those kids. Thank you.
Do you all understand? I know Nanejewa does.
Yeah.
Because
never mind. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I will say that like okay, I definitely
so you go ahead.
I definitely went that path. I mean, I definitely went the stereotypical child of Ghanaian immigrants like healthcare path. I did try to explore other avenues, but I think my parents were pretty firm on me being meant for medicine. But yeah, I definitely went that path, and I don't regret it now. But it can be it's very interesting what it's like dealing with other, I guess, white people in my, I sort of don't see them. Okay, I'm when you have parents as intense as yours, you kind of really don't see like the other, I guess other white people in your field, because you're not really competing against them. You're competing against yourself, and you're trying to live up to your own potential. So, but yeah, like, I'll let the other people who actually didn't go that path answer.
I can.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry. You
uh,
can go.
okay. For me, it was especially because I made the career change a little late. It was definitely something that we had a discourse and discussion about. My dad was more for it than my mom initially. She didn't want me to go down the path of a lawyer at first, but um, when they finally got into it, they were my strongest supporters. They've been helping me with the LSAT, helping me through this process every step of the way. They've been supportive. Um, so I would definitely say don't be afraid to have that conversation if you're going through if you're having doubts and you're thinking that this may not be your path. And try not to make your parents your enemy because they're there for you. They care about you and they want the best for you, and they will be the ones that support you, especially uh when it comes to white people. Again, like my sister, I didn't really see them, but because I had the support of my family. So it was always only ever about me and my trajectory and where I was going. So if you allow your parents to come in and help you and really care about you and support you, then you won't have to worry about who you're being compared up against.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that as well. Definitely big on the support. I when I was younger, I wanted to go the medicine route. I wanted to do veterinary science because I was always into animals. And then I just realized that science was not my calling at all. But my parents were always very supportive about it, especially my dad. He's always had a very strong knack for business. So it wasn't much of a surprise when I said that I wanted to do business. And actually, it was them that really encouraged the switch because even though I was doing businessy things, it didn't really click in my head until, my parents said, "Oh, you should do business. Like you're really good at it. You're really good at marketing and all this stuff." And so support is really what kids need at the end of the day. My parents were very supportive. They drove, I couldn't drive for half of the time I was owning a business. So they drove me to everything. They showed up for everything. They helped me do whatever I needed. And there was a point where I was very proud of what I did. And I almost wanted to do everything myself. But, it was nice having my parents to remind me that, you don't have to do things alone. And at the end of the day, that's the support that, kids need. And so I definitely think that, parents support your kids. And if you're on route and you're thinking that you don't want to do medicine, definitely find your niche early on. Find what you want to do. Show your parents that you have sort of, like a plan to go off of. Mine was through toys, and, what people didn't think could be a business or could be a venture became one. So it could be something unconventional. So I definitely say, like, parents, if you think your kids are struggling or something like that, don't shoot every idea your kid has down. Like social media, were my parents big on me having a YouTube channel when they found out? No. But did it help me, find my calling today? Yes. And eventually, I was able to teach myself video editing skills, photography skills at the age of 11 and 12. I could use Photoshop effectively. And now, that's helped me create my social media channels now. I'm working on my TikTok and increasing my following there. And I've already been able to generate 86,000 followers off of social media. So it's really important that, you find what you want to do early on, and it can be through something as unconventional as maybe like a toy or a toy channel or something like that. So don't shoot every idea that your kid has down. It could be, something that they could really make something out of it if you let their passions bloom. And yeah, that's the advice I would give.
Thank you, Nana. Nana Jewa.
Yeah, I was a bit quiet because I have to say I feel like I have top 10 most supportive parents ever. I have never felt that my parents disagreed with the path that I was going to take. And I think so from the time I was young, I've always been very acutely aware of what I am not good at and what I'm good at. And another thing that I say God has blessed me with is that I'm very stubborn. So once I make up my mind about something, you can't change my mind about it. And for better or for worse. So I say that to say that every time I've come to my parents with a plan, they just said, okay. When I told them I wanted to go to an arts high school, they said okay. When I told them I wanted to leave Adventist school and go to public school, they said okay. When I told them, hey, I'm not good at math and science, I'm going to pursue an alternate route, they said okay. They have never said no to me in regards to an academic or work opportunity. And I feel very privileged and blessed to be able to say that. So I encourage parents on the line to not, as Nana Bima said, and as all of our panelists have said, not immediately shoot down an idea that your child has, but just try to encourage them to develop a plan and do what they need to do to see if that path works for them. Now that I'm on the other side of the working world, the thing that I treasure most about my educational experiences is that I had so much time to explore. When you're young, that is the best time to figure out what you like and what you don't like. There's going to be a point in time where somebody owns 8 hours of your day. So you utilize the time where you have more unstructured space to figure out what it is you want to do to make an impact in the world. And parents, I encourage you to allow your kids to be free to explore, whether that leads them to healthcare or it leads them outside of healthcare. I think the biggest thing is that we want to raise happy and healthy children who will be able to meet God in peace in the future. So whatever you can do, parents, to support your children in that, please do that.
Okay. Any more questions, please? Questions? Because we're going to wrap up soon. It's 8:53. Questions, please?
There's one in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's a question in the chat. How did you maintain your relationship with God, I think, during when you were probably in college or during your life? Yeah, I think that's because it says God during, but the question did not. And so you say, how did you maintain your relationship with God? Anyone of you can take it while you were in college.
I can definitely. Oh, you did it again. I mean, you could go.
Okay,
You
Kobe,
can go
go.
first. You
Yeah.
go first.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I could definitely take this answer. You know, for me in college, yeah, you know, like um I was raised with Christianity, and in college, you know, I became more of a spiritual person, and that's really what I focused on going down that path. You know, for focusing on the inward was really important for me, and that, you know, helped me go through college because eventually, you know, I found out for myself, you know, like, you know, it was very hard, you know, finding what your spiritual path was, especially in high school. And you know, you don't always go the traditional route. But for me, finding that like spirituality was a big thing for me eventually when I came into college was super huge. Um, and finding who I was as a person and connecting with, you know, the spirit within me was such a good, which is such a big thing for me. And eventually it led me down the right path. So you know, whatever it is for you, you'll find that connection, you'll find that, you know, inward projection that you need, and you find it within. And that's something that I didn't know that I could do, you know, going through high school. So I feel like definitely college brought me back into being more of a spiritual person and being able to navigate that. I feel like that's what college did for me. And so it was really actually important for me to go to college to find my way back to it. But that's definitely how spirituality, and that's how it's affected me and helped me through becoming the person that I am. It's very, very good. And you know, you can do forms of meditation that helps you connect with, you know, you know, that helps you connect with God and helps you come into the person that you are. That's really important. It's really important to stick with or meditation and come back to the person that you are.
Okay. Kobe.
All right. I can take it next. In much in the same vein as Nanabima, I was raised Christian. I had that strong foundation, and those principles, they guided my morals. my advocacy, what I believed in. They helped keep me on the right path. Especially in the same vein as my sister, sort of reconnecting spiritually when things get tough, meditating to find your time alone, and really not being afraid when things don't seem like going your way, asking what's going on, what's the path, how are things really being set out for me, am I truly on the right way? I think being able to ask that question, I think God would be welcoming of such questions. I think he is, and I think he wants you to ask those things. And it's all right sometimes to not know where you're fully going in the middle of it. But remember that God is focused on the bigger picture and not so much on the little stops along the way. That one can be anything, but the end goal is always determined as long as you have God and as long as you're very spiritual and you stay with it.
Amen. Thank you. Nane Jiwa, and then I think someone has a question.
Sure. So when that question was asked, I was thinking about the text where Elijah met God not in the fire or the wind, but he met God through a still small voice. And that came to my mind because I feel like in college I was very active in church. I played for music services. I was very involved, but I think that my relationship with God really got strengthened in graduate school because that was the first time I was living on my own and I had to start to really figure things out by myself. It wasn't everything that I was going to call my parents for. So I will say that I really met God in that solitude, in those quiet days where I just had to be an adult and get my work done and make sure that the adult things I needed to do also happened. So, one thing that was very beneficial for me in graduate school was I did a couple of periods of fasting and prayer. And for whatever reason, I felt that those were the times that God really spoke to me. I had a lot of mental clarity during those spaces that I feel helped me to develop a more personal relationship with God. Secondly, I would say that graduate school taught me to pray to God about the most minute things that I thought God didn't care about. And for me, just being able to sometimes I would wake up just anxious, like I felt like I couldn't do anything. And I would simply just pray to God to help ease my mind. And after the prayer, I would notice that I felt so much calmer. And that's where I really said, oh, okay, God is real. God is personal to me. God cares about the littlest details of my life. And for me, for whatever reason, that clicked for me when I was in graduate school. And that was what really taught me, okay, this is somebody I can depend on. This is somebody that I want to have a deeper relationship with. So yeah, once I had that experience, I think it helped me to approach church. It helped me to approach life and even my studies in a different way. So yeah, I would say prayer, fasting, being part of a strong church community really made a difference in maintaining my relationship with God.
Thank you. So I think Nana Bema and Kobe, you do have somewhere to go, right? You have appointments, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
So
we do, but we can take one more question if there
you take
is.
one more okay. I think Afia Cha, your hand is up. So if you want to ask your question, please.
Thank you. I won't take too much of your time. So my first question, the reason why I asked that question was because, and I hope that parents are how we are really listening and will push our kids to a direction where they can really be fulfilling for their own lives, not for yang. In the sense that I work for Deloitte, it's a big accounting firm, and every year we go for Deloitte University, like a lot of Ishiahua, a lot of like 300 or 400 people, you can count the number of black kids. So when you reduce it to Africans, they are not Ira. Sometimes it's so sad. These white little kids are making so much money, but we are pushing our kids into healthcare, whatever. We're not letting them to choose their own path. I see these white kids, most of them, they are not as bright as our kids, but because the opportunity is not omwenyano, they have been able to explore it. And see, I'm hoping the parents are also, we are taking notice of this and letting our kids choose a different path. My question has to do with, my next question has to do with, I know that you live your life on social media. Youth, like in this our world, growing up in Ghana, we never had that opportunity. We just, had what we had, and we had to use that, and that's it. But you have like the whole world in your hands. How do you manage that with your schoolwork, with internship and all that stuff together? How do you manage your life in the midst of all that, and your mental health? Thank you.
I think Nana Bema, this is your question, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it is. So for me with social media is honestly, I ended up like not necessarily I guess I did manage it in a sense, but honestly, I think the issue with like I guess a lot of parents take that traditional route where, it's hard to understand the fast moving culture. So instead of, you know, trying to understand it, we sort of push it away, which I don't think is very effective, especially in this time. I mean, I was grown up in this age where you can't get rid of it. It's there, and social media has always been a part of my life, and it's about teaching your kids how to not let social media control you, how to utilize your resources, how to utilize like anything with social media. It is a helpful tool if you know how to use it properly, and I think that's what more parents have to teach their children. It's not necessarily reject it or push it away, but learn how to, you can use social media effectively, and how it can help enhance your life. I was blessed to go on social media very early, so I got very comfortable with all the different platforms, and now I've made social media a full-time job for me. And so finding my calling through that, I don't think I would have been able to do it if I didn't know how to use social media effectively, and have the time to self teach myself these sort of different tools with it. So I think it's really important that, at the end of the day, yes, it's really important that you're monitoring your kids' social use, but it's also important that on social we don't make social media necessarily the enemy, because it is the world that we're moving towards now, and it's really important that kids are well equipped and know how to use it, and know how to what sites to access, how they can use it to help them with schoolwork, how they can use it to make their lives a little bit easier. I don't think it's necessarily, I think a lot of times there's almost an old approach to social media, that it makes kids lazy, that it makes kids not want to work, and I don't think that's true. I think it just helps kids use their resources properly, and it's just a different way of doing things. And towards your comment about, I like the sort of like white kids that go through this phase, everybody mentioned that they don't see a lot of white people in the sort of avenues they are. I do. I do see a lot of white people going through, social media, but also just in the business world in general. And at the end of the day, that's just really where you have to come to yourself and accept your blackness. At the end of the day, you're black first. And that's the most important thing. And knowing where you come from is so important. Don't ever be ashamed of your culture. Trust me, culture is so, so, so important, because a lot of those white kids are lacking culture.
Yeah.
And it's really, really nice to have something that you can always come back to. I'm always going to be a proud Ghanaian, American. I grew up doing a very white sport. I think it's about 79 of registered Black equestrians out of 44,000 are black. So I was surrounded by white people for as long as I can remember. And at the end of the day, like, letting people know that I am Ghanaian and making that very proud and known helped me come into my identity. And it helps me even become the person that I am, and knowing that I don't have to compare myself to anything that they're doing, because yes, they're going to be handed opportunities left and right. Yes, there's, lots of kids that have that nepotism, but that just makes me want to work, even harder for that. So yeah.
Thank you. Kobe, you have anything to add?
Uh, she really hit the nail on the head there. I guess sort of in terms of confronting the whiteness. Very much in the same vein. know your blackness, utilize your blackness, be aware of yourself in that space, utilize it to get ahead. Um, take the opportunities that the white people don't have the spine to take. And make sure that when they get too testy, you put them in their place, and you make sure that they know that you're Gunyan and that you're proud, and that they're not going to step on us. They're not going to put us down in any conceivable way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Nanajua?
Yeah, I think they said it all.
Okay, all right. So I see in the chat, it says, in the event of having the freedom to find your purpose, what was the parenting style X factor besides the supports that kept your drive on the goal? So they're asking about parenting style. I have to say I'm a helicopter mom, but I'll have you all answer.
For me, it was definitely the support. My parents were so supportive, like just very, very supportive parents. They came to every function, they showed up, and showing up is so important as well. It sees that your parents are interested in what you're doing. And they encouraged me, even if, they didn't always think, the ideas that I was doing were the greatest. They nudged me, they helped me, they supported me. And sometimes it's important, like, to just let your kids learn on their own as well. Like that is an important thing, because a lot of times it's easy to micromanage, but the learning comes from, what the kids do themselves a lot of the times. It teaches you to be self-sufficient. So I definitely think, just encouragement is such a big thing, and encouraging your kids to do what they want. Don't overbear them too much, but, just nudge them in the right direction. If you see that they've had a hobby or that they've taken interest, let them tap into it. Support them the most you can. That will really help bring, what your kid wants to do outwards. And eventually your kid will have the confidence to do what they want to do in the long run.
Nanajua?
Yeah, Miss Onuneo Photobia it said children learn what they live. And I say that because I think that parents have a big responsibility to be good role models for their children. My parents were people who had not just high expectations for me, but high expectations for themselves. Yeah, woman, not my mom and my papa more college. So from the minute I was born, I saw my parents in school striving to better themselves. They started out by selling newspapers, working at warehouses, working at fast food chains. So I've always seen this really strong work ethic to try to achieve no matter what. So for me, I said, well, who am I not to try to achieve the highest heights? If my parents, who were the first in their families to go to college, could do it, why can't I? So I think as parents, we have a big role to try to demonstrate to our children what success looks like, what growth looks like, what faith and action looks like. And so I think that was another motivating factor for me, was seeing how hard my parents struggled and how much they sacrificed for me. I felt that I had to do the very best that I could to make them proud. So I would say that was another motivating factor for me.
Thank you. Kobe?
Support really goes a long way. Just the fact that your parents are behind you and they support what you do will mean so much to your children, especially when they're dealing with a world that is hostile to their existence, that is set up in a way that is meant to discourage them. When your children have ideas, we've mentioned this a couple of times, that it's good to encourage those ideas, to develop a plan with them and help them figure it out, help them truly understand the shape of their dream. And of course, like my sister said, sometimes letting them go their own way, sometimes micromanaging can get a little tiresome, but the support, the ultimate feeling behind it goes such a long way. And knowing that your parents are behind you and that they're with you 100%, even during those times where it's like they're micromanaging me, or it feels like sometimes like a lot, it means more to me than if they didn't care, than if they weren't there at all. And I'm inspired by how hard they work. my father in particular. His story, he went from a very harrowing situation and worked himself up from basically nothing into, I mean, the position that he's in now. And knowing that he's given me such this head start, I know that I can't waste this chance, that I have to work hard to take advantage of the opportunities and the blessings that he's given me. And I want to be able to pay that forward onto people.
Thank you so much. I know Nanabeme and Kobe, you have to go to dinner, and I don't want to hold you up any longer, but I had just one question. And my sister Rose, please hold on for me, call the restaurant, tell them you're coming. I have one more question. You four, the five of you are the exception because you all have highly educated parents, right? But we have some people, some young people who don't have highly educated parents, right? So for Kobe, Nanabema, and Akosia, your father is a physician. Your mother has a master's in medicinal chemistry and also a master's in business administration, right? For you, Naneje, while your father has a PhD in public health, your mother has a PhD in nursing. So you have these parents who've accomplished a lot, but then we have some young people who don't have that opportunity. What advice would you give to those young people who don't have parents with all of this education to be able to guide them? What advice would you give to those young people? So I will let Nana Bema go first, then Kobe, and then you can hop off, and then Nana Jewa can also answer since you all have to go somewhere.
Yeah, so like Auntie Vera said, I'm very blessed to have educated parents. I do know one of my friends, I think I should use her story, since I feel like it's more relatable in that aspect, since, I can give advice, but it's not as effective as, I didn't actually have that experience. So I do have a really close friend of mine who she has persevered through a lot. Her parents didn't go to college. None of her family members went to college, and her father's actually he had passed away as well. So it was just her mother, and just her, and she was the only one of her family to go to college, let alone USC. And her on her first round, she wasn't actually even accepted to USC. What she had done is she had put an appeal letter, and she literally wrote herself a very strong worded letter of why she should get into USC. What she did, she didn't have the opportunity. She was homeschooled. She didn't have, what a lot of these kids from USC have. A lot of these kids, they go to USC, their dad owns a billionaire company and all that stuff. She didn't have that. She just, had what she had known. And she was in this little town of Jersey, homeschooled, her parents didn't have the opportunities. So she wrote her own very strong worded letter about why she deserves to be at USC, and why if they don't accept her, they would probably make the worst mistake of their lives. And just with that letter, she was accepted. And I feel like that is just a testament to show that you have, if you have the drive, you have the hard work, you can do anything, right? Like we live in this digital age where you can use the internet to your advantage, where if you're interested in law, you can get educated in politics just using the internet. If you're interested in social media, you can follow what other social media gurus are doing, and follow their techniques and teach yourself how to learn the algorithms. And I guess like where I can relate to this is I didn't necessarily, I had very successful parents. I didn't necessarily had parents that knew how to navigate through what I wanted to do, knew how to navigate through social media and stuff like that. And that's where I had to self teach myself different things. And so that's what I did. I taught myself how to use Photoshop at 10. I taught myself how to draw digitally at 11, 12. I just sat at the computer just doing it myself. I taught myself how to read an algorithm, how to study social media, how to find trends and all these things. I taught myself how to do all of that. So you'll pick up these skills, if it's writing you really like to do, read lots of different books, read your favorite articles and just keep writing, go on writing sites, share your stories, just keep writing and writing, and eventually you'll find your calling. But there are ways that sometimes you have to take that initiative for yourself, and you can't be afraid to do it because that's how you learn. Um, and you don't always have to have the opportunities, because there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunities, but if you have the drive and you have the will and you have the want and the desire, you can do anything that you want. So I think sharing her story added more testament to somebody who didn't have the opportunities, who succeeded. And I think it goes to show that no matter how hard you work, you can do it. Like you can succeed. So I think that's really, really an important lesson.
Thank you. Kobe?
Yeah, I'll also draw on a close friend of mine. His name is Jesus. He was a first generation. He got into GW, and was the first of his family to go to college. Um, I think that I think that in his case, because his parents didn't have a set path, they had the benefit of flexibility. And I think that parents who haven't had that should lean into that flexibility, really allow their children to be able to go, to be able to follow their path and their passions and pursue what they want.
Okay.
And like my sister was saying, hard work goes a very, very long way, especially when when your child is driven. I think that you should, if you don't have that, if you don't have that pass set out for you, let your child get interested in a ton of things. Let them find what drives them, what they're willing to work hard at, and really encourage that, really foster that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Nana Jiwa, and then we'll just bring our session to a close.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Not too much to add here outside of putting yourself out there, trying to find different resources in the schools that you're in, whether that's a guidance counselor or somebody like that who can point you to, for example, scholarships or ways to help support you in your goals and dreams, I think is key, especially as a first generation student. When you do make it to college, there are also programs specifically geared towards first generation and low income students. And I would definitely recommend joining those because they can teach you a lot about the unwritten rules of navigating colleges, jobs, etc. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So thank you so much, Kobe. Thank you so much, Nana Bema. Thank you so much, Nana Jewa. Thank you so much, Akosia. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. I have learned so much from all four of you, and I'm hoping that I will continue to learn from you every day. I know I interact with you all on a regular basis, so I know I learn from you each day. So just continue to do what you're doing, continue to soar, and don't forget to pull others up as you go along, because you have all the support you needed, but you also need to help others someday when you succeed. So thank you so much for your time. At this time, I'll give it over to Michael or to Kelvin. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Dr. Vera, for such a wonderful program. Right now, I will call on our brother Richmond to give us our closing prayer.
First, let me say thank you to everybody who